Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings, but this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018, and no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. Maud Ventura is the author of My Husband, a novel. Maud is 30 years old and lives in Paris. She led the podcast division of one of France's major radio stations and speaks fluent English. My Husband is her first novel. Welcome, Maud. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss My Husband.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. I feel like I should attempt to speak my high school French to you at this point, but...
Oh, yes. Please do. I will feel less bad about my English if you speak French as well.
My French is horrifyingly bad. At this point, I feel like I can understand when people speak French, but I can't remember the words. Anyway, but we can go back and forth. Okay, My Husband. This was so great. And by the way, I did not see the ending coming at all.
Good.
Totally did not see that coming. So that was like a huge surprise. But anyway, can you please tell listeners what your book is about?
Yes, sure. So my book is called My Husband, and it's a story of a 40-year-old woman who is just perfect. She has a perfect life, the perfect husband, 2 kids, a nice home. But the problem is that she's crazy in love with her husband. She lives for him. Everything she does is for him, and she just goes crazy. I don't know how to say that, but she's madly in love. Too much.
Yes, emphasis on the madly.
Yes.
So her husband, through her love and sort of obsession with him, honestly, she keeps this journal, this notebook where she records everything, all these things that as spouses or partners, we kind of keep a mental tally of, he did this. What about this? I don't know. What about this? I'm annoyed about this. But she writes it all down in a notebook. Tell me about that decision as one of the many ways.
Yes, I feel she's just like you and me, but far worse. It's like it's you and me, but the worst version without any limits. And I wanted to go too far. So I can write something that everyone thinks about, but no one really dare to do it actually in the real world. But I really wanted to put emphasis on what's real and what is untold most of the time. So I will get mad because my boyfriend said something I was upset about, and I will get very angry with him. But usually I don't talk about it. I just say nothing. But in the book, I go too far and I write it down and I get mad and I punish him at the end of the day. And it's what I love about fiction. You can write anything you want and you can go too far, even if it's not really realistic, I guess.
That's true. I love the fight they have over whether or not to close the shutters, and how one of them was like, well, you can, she's like, well, of course you can sleep when it's light out because I saw you sleeping in the morning. And of course, what couple hasn't had a discussion about this? You know, my husband loves to keep all the blinds open, and I'm like, but then I can't sleep. And then I get up at the crack of dawn, and he's like, you get up at the crack of dawn anyway. So what does it matter? So it's always one of those, just like one of those things, which of course, if you don't really address the root cause, which of course is sort of what I think is permeating through this whole book, if you don't get to the bottom of it, then all the little things just make the big things sort of fester and fester and explode.
And also they don't communicate. Because you can tell your husband, okay, can we find a middle point? Can we find compromise and do something that works for both of us? But in her marriage, they don't talk. She doesn't say a word, and she keeps everything in herself, which I think is very bad and toxic.
Where did this idea come from with you?
Yeah. So when I started writing the book, I was 25, and I was madly in love with my boyfriend at the time. And we just moved in together in a little apartment in Paris where I live. And I was really upset because I was like, I am madly in love with him. And I feel like what's going to happen next because we live together. It's the end of the story. But I was keep being madly in love as if we've been together for like 2 weeks. And something was wrong. And I was obsessed with him. I thought he was perfect. And it was really an unbalanced relationship. So the starting point of the fiction was what I was going through, my love life. But I really needed fiction because I can't write about myself. I don't know how to do that. I really need to use my imagination. So I created this character, this woman. So she's tall, she's blonde, she's everything I am not, obviously. And I wanted her to be.
Wait, for those people listening, Maud has dark brown hair, and I can't tell how tall you are, but I don't know.
No, I'm not very tall. I'm petite, as we say in France. I mean, I wanted her to be very different from me. And at the time, I was 25 and she was 40. So in my life, she was like so old and she had all this life, like a home and 2 kids. It was very exotic to me. I was still a student. So the starting point was my life. And then I really needed fiction to go further and investigate what was keeping me up at night, I guess.
And so what happened with the guy?
He dumped me. No, but it's for the best. So actually, we stayed together for like 3 years, and I've been writing my husband for 3 years. So like my book was what was I was writing during the relationship. And the ending, we can't talk about the ending, but I was able to put a last word in my novel when we broke up and I understood what was going on in the relationship. But I can't say more. But
okay. Wow. I feel like we need to do a deeper dive over a cup of coffee or something. I would like all the ins and outs of this relationship. Of course, it's none of my business, but when did you start writing fiction? When did you realize that was the way that you needed to process things in the world?
Maybe 2 years earlier. So I was maybe 22 or 23. I was actually living in New York at the time and I had a lot of spare time. And I was actually writing a master degree in philosophy. I was studying philosophy at Columbia University for 1 year. And I loved doing research, but I was really attracted to fiction because when you write fiction, you can write whatever you want. You don't have to be precise. You don't have to quote your sources. You don't have to be like true. And no one will ever be upset with me if I write something in fiction that is not true, if I exaggerate, if I'm not very accurate. And so I felt like fiction was really freedom to me.
Wow. And so this is your first book. This is crazy. And how do you feel? It came out in France first, and now it's coming to the States, or it has come to the States. I know, I just saw it in my bookstore. Tell me what it's like having this sort of land in such a big way.
It was very unexpected first. And this book just changed my life. It changed everything. Now I am working on my second novel, so I have the freedom to write full time, which is just insane. And it was very strange and bizarre and uncanny because in France, we don't have agent, when you're a writer. I just wrote my manuscript and then I send it to publishing houses and then I got published. But really, when I was writing, I had no idea that someone will ever read it. Like, really, I had no clue and I couldn't know because they get like thousands of manuscripts and then they're going to publish maybe one or two. So what were the odds? Like, it couldn't happen. So I was really thinking like, okay, I'm going to write this manuscript because it's really important to me. And then I will write a second one and then a third one. And eventually something maybe will come out of it. But so at the same time, it was really like freedom because I could write whatever I wanted because I really thought that no one would ever read my book. So it was really like a special time for me.
Wow. So what does it feel like now knowing that people will read what you're writing?
It feels very different, but I feel like I have to forget that I have readers waiting for me to get like this freedom back of writing what feels really true to me.
Amazing. So can you talk about your next book or no?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
But yeah, I'm putting all my heart in it.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to read it. So you used to lead the podcast division?
Yes.
Some major radio stations in France. Tell me more about that and your experience with podcasting yourself and now being on this podcast and all that.
It's crazy. So yes, I have two passions. I have writing, literature, and also podcasts and radio. So when I was a student, I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And in my mind, being a writer was not a full-time job. I changed my mind about that. Now it's my full-time job, but at the time it was more of a dream and not a career. So I started working in a big radio company in France, and I started listening to podcasts, actually American podcasts, because there are so much more podcasts to choose from in the US. And I was listening at the time to the podcast called Dear Sugar from Cheryl Strayed. I am a huge fan. And so, yes, podcast was a part of my life, and then it became my job. And then my first book was published. So I kept working for the first year, but then it became too big with the promotion, going to Italy to promote the book, going to London. And so I couldn't keep doing everything because I was doing the promotion, writing my second novel, and working a full-time job in the podcast division. So I eventually quit my job, but I really love podcasts. So, and I know you do too. So
I do. I love the ability to just talk with anybody. I mean, where are you today? I'm looking out your window. You must be like, where are you? You're in some beautiful, I don't know. Where are you? In the south of France?
I am in the Alps, in the mountains.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there goes my geography.
And you are in Los Angeles, which
and
is
I'm in
great.
Los Angeles. Yes. Also, I know I should take my laptop and show you the mountains behind me too. I'll show you across the world. But
oh wow.
Yeah, in the mountains of Los Angeles.
It doesn't make any sense.
I know, right? It's like crazy. What are we doing talking to each other here? But anyway, yeah, I think it's amazing. It's like magic. I love the description of a 40-year-old woman with two kids and a husband as exotic. I think that is the nicest thing anyone's ever said about this stage of life. As time has passed, and as you have talked, I'm sure, to more and more women and everything, like how has that perception changed, if at all?
Well, some women told me, I loved your book, but I can tell you don't have kids, because if you had kids, you would never write something like that, because the character is not very loving with her two kids. She's very cold and she's not very into motherhood. Mm. And I felt that I could write that because I don't have kids. So, and I am 30 now, and I really want to have kids one day. And I feel like if I have kids one day, I will not be able to write some of the things that I wrote in my first novel. So being 25 and being so far away from this life of having a husband, a home, kids, make it easier to be bad and to be complex and ambivalent about motherhood.
Wow. Yeah, your character is, the kids are like an afterthought. They're like an inconvenience or an afterthought. And yes, if I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe some women who are mothers feel this way. I don't know who they are, but maybe they're hopefully, I don't know, whatever. Everybody has a different view on motherhood and the relationship of the husband. And I don't know, the advice my mother always gave me was like, your kids are always going to be there. You have to focus on your husband. And I'm like, what? The kids are like drooling on the floor, about to like tumble down a staircase. Like my husband's a grown man. Of course, then we got divorced. So I don't know. But anyway, I think the pendulum has swung so far the other way that it's kind of refreshing to read a story like this, where you're like, wait, what? You don't have to like be obsessed with your kids. You could potentially be obsessed with your husband.
And also, I guess French women tend to be a lot more focused on their love life and husband and relationship, and not so focused on their kids. Because I have some of my girlfriends who have kids, and I feel like they really fight to keep the flame and the passion with their husband after the kids come along the way. So maybe it's also cultural.
Mm-hmm. French women are so cool.
We are also very cold, so I'm not sure.
Oh my gosh. Do you still listen to podcasts, and which ones? And also, what do you like to read in your spare time?
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I love interviews and discussion, especially because I get very inspired, and I feel it's crazy because when you listen to podcasts, you can listen to like stranger talking about their life. In France, we have a podcast called Transfer, and it's just someone saying a story. You don't know who he is, you don't know who this person is, and it's just like a story, first narrative person. And so I listen to this podcast every week, and it gives me really like insights into people's minds. And as a writer, it's amazing to be able to have access to intimate thoughts. And I also listen to podcasts about money. It's more and more popular in France. We have a podcast called Histoire d'argent, stories about money. And it's just people telling stories about how they feel about money. So what they want to spend their money for, what they want to, are they afraid of not having enough money, or are they feeling abundance? And I think it's very interesting. So I just listen to various podcasts, and I deeply regret that Dear Sugar don't exist anymore. I miss this podcast a lot. And then, yes, I read a lot as well, but I don't read in English a lot. I read to French literature a lot.
Wow. And have you noticed any big differences between publicity and events and all of that stuff in the US versus in Europe?
Oh, yes. In the US, everything is so well organized. Whereas in France, I feel like we are amateurs, you see, because in France, you have my publicist sending me like very detailed emails with the dates, and you have forms to fill with all the info, and everything is very precise. And when you have a meeting, it starts on time and it's finished on time. Whereas in France, it's just like I have my publicist over the phone, and we talk about it, and then we hang up, and then they will ask for my info like twice a day, even if they already have the info. So I feel in the US, it's so professional. And I said to my French editor, we are amateur.
Oh, that's good to hear, I guess. I mean, that's a nice vote of confidence for our efficiency here.
Yeah.
Where is your next novel set? Can you even say that?
In Los Angeles.
No way. Interesting.
Oh, yes.
Well, you need any on the ground research or descriptions or anything, let me know.
Oh, yeah. I will love that.
And what's going on with your love life? Are you in a relationship now? Can I ask?
Yes, I am. And I'm very happy. And also I realized that the love I am describing in my husband is not the love I long for anymore, because in my husband is very passionate and they don't talk to each other and she's sad all the time, but she's madly in love, but also crazy sad all the time with really lots of ups and downs. And I feel like now I am 30 and I want something calm and with trust, because in my husband, they don't trust each other at all. And she goes through her husband's things and she reads his emails and stuff like that. And I don't want that anymore. So I feel like I came in terms with what passion is and the limits of it. If you want, especially if you want to have a family and if you want to build something, I want to build something on trust, communication, and not on passion and destruction. So yes, I am in love, but not madly enough. Very in love.
Oh, I love that. You had a line in the book about the solitaire diamond and how it was solitaire was such an interesting word choice, because there is that feeling that can come with being in a marriage where you feel completely isolated and alone, which I thought was really beautiful.
Yeah, because I feel like usually you think that if you are single, you are lonely. And if you are in a relationship, well, you're not lonely because you are with someone. But I have never felt lonelier than with the man I was with at the time. I feel like you can be two in a bed and feel lonely as if you were in the middle of the desert. So yes, it was very important to me because when you have it all, I had the perfect boyfriend. He was in love with me. I was in love with him. Like on paper, everything was perfect. But I wanted to point out that even if on paper everything is perfect, you can feel lonely as hell, and you have the right to be unhappy and to say you are unhappy, because relationship and being in love doesn't necessarily mean being happy. You can be in love and feel unhappy and lonely. So yes.
Love that. Well, it's so important because a lot of people do feel that way and they don't talk about it because it's not like the accepted thing to say. Like people,
Yes.
I don't know, or maybe just to their closest friends. But I think you shining a light on this and realizing, showing people that it doesn't have to necessarily be this way, or that at least you should acknowledge that this is what's happening. And then figure out how you want to handle it. And I think that's like the first step. So anyway. Yeah. Maud, congratulations. I really love chatting with you, and I'm so excited for everything you have to come. And I hope you enjoy your time in the Alps and all of your success to come.
Thank you so much. It was so great chatting with you. And if I have questions about Los Angeles, I will email you.
I'm here. I'll be your staff. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.